Well, welcome everyone. My name is Katie DeMeo. I'm with AIM Consulting, and I'm really excited to be here with you all today. We're doing a Pitt River Tribe Burney walking and biking network assessment. We're really excited to hear from you. And so first, before we start off, we're going to go through a bit of the Zoom logistics. I know we've all been in these Zoom rooms for quite a while now, but couldn't hurt to have a little refresher course. So you're going to remain muted during the actual presentation, but there's going to be a lot of times for question and answer sessions, as well as a mapping activity where you guys can be fully unmuted and be able to be a part of the conversation. We're just going to be having it on mute to start so that we can avoid any background noise. This meeting is also going to be recorded for note-taking purposes, as well as for the future grant writing. You'll be able to add any questions or comments during the presentation in through the chat box. So please feel free to use it. It's right on the toolbox below as part of your tools in Zoom. Another thing is we're going to be using the live polling feature a lot here tonight via Zoom. These will come up right onto your screen. It'll be superimposed right next to the PowerPoint, and you'll be able to join on the polls and answer with us live. And then the final thing is that we do recommend the speaker view recommendation. That will give you the best experience with the full PowerPoint and the speaker beside. But again, we're really excited to get this started with you tonight. And so this next slide, we're going to talk about what we're going to be going over here today. So again, right now I'm doing some brief introductions and some meeting orientations. After this, we're going to do a get to know you live poll. We have Herb Quinn here, who's going to give us our partner tribal member address. We're going to have some project background and goals, an introduction of the network. Again, plenty of time for question and answers. We're going to be doing a great map-based exercise where we have a bunch of questions, and we can't wait to hear from you then. And then we're going to end with some proposed improvements for the network, and a wrap up in closing in our next steps and how to stay involved. And so it's my pleasure tonight to be able to introduce our full project team. First, we have Herb Quinn with the Pitt River Tribe. We have Keith Williams with Shasta Regional Transportation Agency. We have Michael Kuker with Shasta Regional Transportation Agency. We have Matt Broughton with Kittleson and Associates. Chris Romano with Kittleson and Associates. Again, I introduce myself. My name is Katie. I have two of my teammates, Angelica Williams and Fiona Ferreras, with us. And Dan Bartleson from Evan Brooks Associates is rounding out our team here today. And so with that, we're going to start our live polling. And again, you're going to see 3 questions on the screen, but we're going to do it one by one. So Fiona, if you could launch our first poll, we want to hear what brings you to the Pitt River Burney area. You want to launch that poll? Wonderful. And then we can end the poll, show the results. Let's move to the second one. Again, aside from driving, how do you get around Pitt River or Burney? Is it by bus? Is it by walking? Assisted device? And again, please put in the chat any other options. And then we can show the results for that. And then our final question here. What would encourage you to walk or bike more to your destinations within the area? Would it be more crosswalks? Maybe better lighting? Better or more complete sidewalks? better and more complete bike lanes, or slowing down cars, vehicle, or traffic? I know it could be multiple of these for many of you, but just your top one right now. Wonderful. Again, thank you guys all for your participation. All right, we can end that poll. And then show the results. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for participating in our first live poll. And with that, I am so proud to introduce one of our partners for this project with the Pitt River Tribe. We have Herb Quinn with us. Herb?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, so my name's Herb Quinn. I'm the roads coordinator for Pitt River Tribe up here in Burney. And I've been on this, working for the tribe on this coordinator position for about 11 years now. I'm not quite sure what year that we partnered with Shasta County Public Works to put in for a pedestrian. It was like 5-foot paved shoulders on both sides of the road, and this was on Tamarack Avenue, right up by where all the tribal offices are and businesses. So from the intersection of Park Avenue and Tamarack, we went up like kind of east up towards Park Street Bridge. But yeah, that area there, I'm thinking it's probably around probably a little less than a quarter of a mile, but we put in street lights on both sides of the road, flashing beacon lights with a crosswalk to so people can walk from one business like tribal office over to the clinic, or Waiachi Village Elders Center also. And then they put in crosswalks over at Park and right on Park Avenue there, Park and Tamarack, and then down by the casino, which leads over to our convenience store over there. So yeah, that was all done. Yeah, it was a really great improvement for us up here. You know, Park Avenue there was no street lights there. Now we got street lights, and for sure the 5-foot paved shoulders really helped out. You know, we got people coming from Waiachi, which is our elders village, going to the casino or down to the store, and they were pretty much in the road, you know, the whole way. But now they're able to get off the highway and utilize those 5-foot shoulders there, paved shoulders. So now that made a big difference up here. So yeah, we're really pleased with that, looking forward to working with SRTA and whoever we can to work on this grant application. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Herb. Again, really appreciate your partnership with this. And with that, I'll turn the program over to Keith Williams.
Okay, great, and thank you, Herb. Yeah, it's always great working with you, just to add on to what Herb was talking about. You know, I think some of those projects that he was talking about, they stem from a planning effort that the tribe was able to do with Shasta County Public Works and Healthy Shasta, Shasta County Public Health, I believe. I'm probably leaving out some partners that were involved in that effort, but this was about 10, 11 years ago. And anyway, those planning efforts are so critical, because what that did was it identified through some engagement with the community and with school kids, which projects are going to be most beneficial for the community. Where are those needs? And really that's where this effort comes in, because still much of the network, all these different projects that they identified, much of that network still needs to be built out. And so the Shasta Regional Transportation Agency is working with local agencies, and also extending offers to the tribes to offer assistance to get projects, active transportation projects, ready for competition and grant programs. Now, the active transportation program is the greatest source of active transportation funding. That's funding for walking and biking projects. And so that's where we naturally want to go to see how much money we can get. It's very competitive though. And so we have to queue up projects that are going to compete well. And so, if you look at the screen here, the ATP does like projects that increase safety for mobility of all modes, all ages and abilities. It looks like that screen's gone now, but in any case, oh, here we go. And the projects that increase public health, increase the number of people walking and biking, and also work with communities that are underrepresented. And if you can move on to the next slide, some of the projects that really do well, they have a lot of public engagement. Now that effort that the tribe worked on with the county to do that planning effort, there was some great public engagement involved there. However, it's 10 years old, like we said, and so we do need to kind of refresh that effort so that the grant program evaluators look at the applications and see that this is current, relevant input from the public. And they also want to see high quality, context appropriate designs, and then address some of these other key points that are listed here that mean so much to the program. So if you just take a look at some of these, keep these points in mind as we go through the presentation today, because really that's how we're going to get points, is by hitting on addressing connections to school, connections to bus stops and housing, and for seniors, and so we want to hear about how we can best meet the community's needs, particularly through those lenses. So just to wrap up here, how we help get projects grant ready is first, like we talked about, the planning effort, then the public engagement, which we're doing now, again, refreshing that effort. And then we help with the design. So we help get some drawings together that show evaluators what it is that the community wants. And these are designs, of course, for all ages and abilities. So not just for people in spandex, but for people walking their babies in strollers, or kids going to school, or people struggling with canes, so it's for all ages and abilities. And then we're going to wrap up the effort with some compelling grant applications that convince evaluators of the need and the great return on investment. And so you'll see Dan Bartleson is with us here today. He's from Evan Brooks Associates, and he helped us out a lot with their team helped us out a lot with the last grant effort, and we were particularly successful. So we're hoping to apply some of the same expertise to get some success for the community of Burney and the Pit River Tribe. And so one other thing that will help the project or help towards getting a grant application funded is in recent cycles of the program, they are funding larger and larger projects and even whole networks. And I've got a little bug in my ear from the program manager that this trend is continuing. They've already been had conversations with communities who are competing against us, and there are going to be other network projects. So we did want to go big on this and try and just look at the projects identified in the plan and create a network. And we feel we have a good chance because the tribe, it hits a lot of the buttons for the program, and the tribe is the applicant, and there are some points associated with tribal applicants. Anyway, that's a lot of the technical detail, probably boring you a little bit, but suffice it to say that we've got a great project here and a great team, and now we're looking to get some input from all of you. And I'll take questions further on, but thank you.
All right, thank you, Keith. I'm Matt Broughton. I'm an associate planner with Kittleson Associates, and so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing to help form up this plan for this network that will eventually, as Keith mentioned, go into that grant application. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the engagement activities we've been doing leading up to this event, as well as some of the existing conditions that we've seen on the ground. So maybe speaking very directly to what Keith mentioned around not just for spandex wearing bicyclists, our first engagement event really was with the student population at Burney Elementary and Burney Junior Senior High School. So these are, youth that their primary way of getting around is either walking or biking or having their parents drive them. And so these improvements tend to have exponential benefits for them in their ability to safely get to school. And so as part of that effort, we were able to survey a total of 314 students and faculty members at the two schools. Students shared a number of different comments, including a story of a student's mom who got hit along Hudson Street, as well as another student that was unfortunately killed while skateboarding in town, but also emphasized through some of the questions and the activities that we did with them of just the importance of having continuous facilities to help them connect between schools, their homes, their friends' homes, and destinations, lighting for when it's dark and they're walking in dark, and speeding being some of the most important issues that they really emphasized in the feedback from them. In addition to that, we then held a day-long stakeholder engagement charrette with the Pit River Tribe and key stakeholders, as well as conducting a walk audit within the community. And so that was to be able to talk through, kind of as Keith mentioned, that 2012 plan of helping to update some of the recommendations in there to current best practices, identify some new opportunities, and then get out on the ground and get into existing conditions of understanding how we're actually going to make those improvements, make those happen through our design process. So at the next couple slides, I'll step into just a couple of the examples of what we saw when we were out there in the field. So first and foremost, the lack of sidewalks was something that was noted by the students in the charrette, and as part of the walk audit of discontinuous walking facilities, as well as just given some of the roads like Park Avenue, drivers speeding because there's a long distance between stops. And so just wanting to manage those speeds and provide a separated place for people to walk and bike so that they're not having to walk right on the edge of the roadway. Next slide. Street crossings are limited or uncomfortable. Herb hit on a few of the improvements that have been made around town to help connect some of those key destinations for the tribe. And so we want to continue that trend as part of this application of identifying what are those important crossings where you have difficulty getting across the road, whether you're walking or biking. So I'd encourage you to think about that as we move into our activity in a few minutes, but really looking to find opportunities of what are the key destinations and the key crossings that we could make improvements to help make them more comfortable. Another part of it was really just looking and seeing on the ground where people are walking, literally on the ground of where people are walking. So seeing the desire lines or the informal paths that are formed where students are either trying to connect from the school up to 299 to the north and have kind of created a pathway and kind of an informal trail to connect up to those destinations. The Burney Creek Trail being another example of that. Looking to identify what are those informal connections that are currently happening and opportunities for us to be able to leverage that through some of the improvements to make those connections safer and more formal. Next slide. And then finally, a big part of our walk audit and charrette discussion centered around State Route 299 Main Street. Obviously, that's the biggest road in the town with a lot of truck traffic on it. Is really an important facility when we're thinking about walking and biking. And so a few of the things that were observed through the process of the outreach and our walk audit of just limited uncomfortable crossings for people walking and biking, speeding as people come into town, no discontinuous sidewalk network throughout, and then the bike lanes being very narrow and kind of providing that limited separation, especially when you think about when we're trying to plan for all ages, of imagining a child riding along the road there with a large logging truck going by them. We want to kind of look for opportunities to increase that separation. So in terms of the network of what are we trying to do and what does this project really entail through some of our work, and we again want to hear from you all tonight of important destinations that may be missing from this network. But what's shown in blue shown in blue here on the map of Burney is really the current routes that we're looking at for the improvements within the community. And really that's looking at opportunities to add sidewalks or side paths so that people can walk separated from vehicle traffic, opportunities to slow traffic to make it more comfortable to bike in the street. Again, adding those crosswalks or curb ramps to make those crossings accessible and more comfortable on the higher speed roadways. Formalizing some of those existing paths where people are currently walking between destinations but don't have a formal connection. And then really focusing in on how can we connect to different tribal or community destinations, to schools, healthcare, senior and affordable housing, making those connections to transit. And then last, just to highlight there, the dashed orange line, we're currently working as part of this project, providing some input to Caltrans, who's going to be making some improvements on Main Street 299 in the near future. And so we've been providing some input to them related to walking and biking improvements that they can integrate into that project with the hope to have a longer term improvement that would follow on from that to integrate with this project as well. With that, I think I'll hand it over to Katie and we can do a little Q&A before we jump into our first activity.
Absolutely. So we wanted to have this time, and thank you, Matt. That was a great presentation. We wanted to have any clarifying questions about what Keith and Matt presented. So if anyone has any questions for us before we move into some mapping activity, please put them in the chat, or at this point, you will be able to unmute yourself and join the conversation. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions so far. And so with that, we're going to move on to our map activity. And that's really what brings us here today. And so what is our plan to slow traffic? It's a great question. Keith or Matt, any plans so far on mitigating traffic or speeds?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the potential improvements, and definitely happy to continue the conversation. I think that's something that we're working through of what is going to make sense with the community, within the community. That can be something as simple as adding stop control, as additional intersections, tightening up some of those intersections so that when people are turning on or off of that roadway, they're making that movement at the more appropriate design speed for the potential conflicts between people that are crossing or driving along there, potential opportunities to potentially add some treatments that kind of, whether they're physically or visibly narrowing the roadway a little bit. I think one of the complications of just recognizing the winter conditions in Burney is we want to minimize the number of vertical elements, which are often some of those traffic calming treatments. And so that's definitely one of our key design questions, where things like speed tables or other raised treatments might be something that we would look at. That's something that we've heard from some of the feedback through that charrette process of being more difficult to implement just with some of the snow plowing activities. And so that's an ongoing conversation of what exactly could be those final recommendations. But yeah, great question.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt. Okay, so with that, we're going to move into our mapping activity. And in a few minutes, or a few moments, we're going to put a map up onto the screen, and we're going to ask a series of questions. And we encourage you all to unmute yourselves, join the conversation, or put your answers in the chat box. With each question, you're going to see different color-coded Post-it notes pop up onto the screen as we get as much data onto this map as possible. And so again, please, we encourage you to go into details, please join us as much as you can. And so with the first question, we want to know, do you walk or you bike today? Like, are you walking or are you biking on a normal basis? And if not, why aren't you? And again, we're going to hope that this becomes as interactive as possible. And so please unmute yourselves, raise your hands, put anything in the chat. We would love to hear from any community members on the call. If you're biking today, if you use your bike, or if you find yourself walking around town.
Hello there. I use my bike and walk just about every day. And also looking at this map right now on the screen, is there a way to make that bigger?
Absolutely.
Oh, there we go.
Great. So you use it every day. That's great to know. Anyone else in the conversation that finds themselves walking or biking every day? And if you don't, can you tell us why you don't?
I usually walk during lunchtime just to get out to walk to the store or just to try to get a little exercise. And I noticed that there's other folks from the health department that do the same.
That's great. Yeah, walking during the day helps break up the day a bit, get some good exercise and some fresh air. So that's great. And again, we have about 20 to 30 minutes for this activity, so we have plenty of time. So again, and we can go back to any of these questions as well. Last chance to join the conversation about walking or biking. And again, you can also put anything in the chat. And
I'll just add, it's okay to echo comments. You know, if you have done you also ride your bike every day, or you also go to the store. In general, and Katie may have already said this, but in general, the more input we have, the greater the likelihood we have of scoring well on our public engagement. So much appreciated any comments that you can provide. Thank you.
Great. And Tuli just put in the chat that she walks and runs when she's in the town or in the region for work. So that's great.
So I'll throw in some more comments. 299, the bike lane that is painted alongside, is right next to the traffic. And up in Johnson Park, they have that little separated zone. And I've also seen in other places where the asphalt is actually painted, a solid color for separation and things like that. So that would really make it much better, because I always ride basically on the outside of the bike lane because it just feels too close to traffic. Couple other comments I'd have that, I know you're looking for a grant and these probably don't apply, but we don't have a bike shop in town.
Great. Yeah.
Can't do anything about that. Just getting compressed air to put in your tires. I know, I don't think the Pit River gas station actually has air available, because I've asked for my vehicle before and it hasn't been there. And I think there's a couple gas stations in town, despite I think state law that you're supposed to have compressed air available at the gas station. There wasn't air available. One thing that the tribe does do well is they had a bike rack right out in front of the casino. I went down there last Saturday for the live music. And one of the things, it's probably not a big, I can't think of a bad example in Burney, but the good example was at the casino that the bike rack was right out in front where the security is. So you can leave your bike in a place that is conspicuous and not around the corner. Because sometimes I've got to places and again, I can't think of any example in Burney, but they're like, oh yeah, you can lock it up around the corner in the dark, over in the alley where somebody can steal it and nobody's going to know. So having bike racks available and in good conspicuous locations is always nice. And then also I volunteered at the high school a few times and ridden my bike over there, and I'm like one of 3 bikes in the bike rack when I show up. So I'm not sure what's happening with the kids, but I don't think they're riding their bike unless there's another bike rack that's not the one right out in front. But it doesn't seem like the kids are riding their bikes. And then there's another one that is more of a Shasta County road maintenance issue, and I don't know if there's anything to be done about it. But in the winter plowing season, I still like to walk, and we'll walk in the evening. Sometimes prefer to walk to the store because I'd rather walk than drive on icy roads. And a lot of times the way the plowing is done, you almost have to, out on Hudson, or mainly that's the main one I'd have to go to like Safeway. You have to kind of dodge from driveway to driveway because there's a berm of snow right next to the traffic lane. So there's no place to walk. And again, I know it's snow and you have to put it someplace, and is probably not an easy solution for that one, but it doesn't seem like there's any consideration when the roads are plowed that it's not just for cars, that people are going to be walking too. And with that, I will mute. Thank you very much.
Wade, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Katie, this is Dan from EBA. And just from a grant standpoint, eligible costs, Wade brought up some interesting things about the bike shop in town, because there are those repair stations for bicycles that can be mounted and located throughout the community, which certainly would be eligible as part of a grant cost, as would bike racks, absolutely. I think durability is one of those key things, is finding something that's durable enough to survive in the wintertime, as well as be useful in the spring and summer and fall. But certainly those are things that could be, they would include air and a pump and certain tools and things that would support, but having them at key areas, I think, would be the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can only imagine, like Keith put in a comment to Wade, without having a bike shop in town, transportation issues must be hindered. Wade, do you know, if you want to come off of mute real quick, without having that, how does that affect your day-to-day, week-to-week transportation needs without having a bike shop nearby?
Well, I just recently had to redo it, have a rim redone on my bike, and so I had to drive it down to Reading and leave it there for a week or two for them to go through it, and needed a bunch of service. So if there was a local bike shop, it was probably something they could have gotten back in a couple days, but it ends up, and also just because I don't run down to Reading every other day.
Yeah.
Oh. I was just out of a bike for a week or two, but it is like I say, a problem, I'm sure, outside the scope of anything in the grant, but it sure would be nice to have a bike shop in town.
I'm sure.
And just
absolutely
bikes, and I don't know, again, I came from Sonoma County, and there were some community bike organizations, some like nonprofits that would take donated bikes and sell some and give some to kids or whatever. And I don't know if there's anything like that already exists in Shasta County. But also going to the issue of like no kids riding bikes to schools, it's like every kid should have a bike. Every kid should learn how to swim. Every kid should have a bike, is kind of my ground level thing for, giving kids opportunities to, be physically fit, essentially.
Absolutely. It's a great point. And again, thank you so much for those comments, Wade. That's exactly what we're looking for here tonight. With that, we're going to move on to our second question. And right now we're going to be looking for some key places that you would like to travel to on foot or bike, or or what you think where do you think others are traveling on foot and bike? So if you want to put in the chat some of the frequent locations that you know of people who are traveling around on bike or walking, or some destinations that we want to make it a bit easier to get to. Maybe there's a activity, food, work areas. I know you're talking about walking around during your lunch breaks at work. All right, Wade, Burney Creek would be awesome if it turned into a real path. Great. Any other destinations we might think are important to the kids or to people who are walking or biking around in the area?
What are you doing,
All right, Danielle put in the chat, easy access from Les Schwab to the shopping center across the street.
I think someone said something, but I didn't quite hear it.
I think so. I think someone got off of mute. And then Wade also commented bike lanes along Hudson Park and Marquette. Great comment.
And Katie, just to be clear, I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. Are you asking for the destinations where people typically need to go to?
Yeah, where are those places that they're going to? Is there a park? Is there a restaurant? Is there schools? Is it again, where are people frequently going on their bikes, and where do we want to make it a bit easier? What are these destinations?
And I mean, I think even regardless of mode of transportation, what are the hot spots in Burney? Where do you want to go?
All right. Well, let's move on to the next question. We can always come back. And again, if you have anything to add, feel free to put it in the chat, unmute yourself, and join the conversation. So our next question is, are there areas where you feel unsafe biking or walking? And we might have addressed some of these again with the bike lanes along Hudson and Marquette, but be specific. What makes you feel unsafe about these places, and where are these areas?
Yeah, Park Avenue. You know, pretty much from Tamarack up to Hudson. There's no sidewalks and no street lights at nighttime. Traffic goes pretty fast on Park Avenue too. That's one of the streets that I've seen traffic, more faster on Park than a lot of this. Well, Hudson, of course, but yeah, I would say that Park Avenue.
Yeah, we hear that. We heard that a lot. And again, we got a lot of great answers from when we went and did the youth engagement and heard from their surveys about some of these problem areas. So where else? Where else are you feeling unsafe to be walking, biking, and moving around town?
I'm just gonna pick on maybe some people. I see there are some representatives from Healthy Shasta and I think maybe public health, or maybe tribal, River Tribe Health Services. But if in your work with the community, maybe you've heard where people feel unsafe walking or biking. Or to Katie's earlier question, where do people need to go? But yeah, your work with the community can also provide great input here too.
And Tully put in the chat, unsafe along across 299. Absolutely. And the follow-up question to this might help as well. Do you know of any places or locations that someone has had a near miss or maybe a crash? And again, where are these points and what did that look, not what did that look like, but again, what is, we're really trying to identify some of these problem areas where people might feel unsafe or where there's crashes occurring so that we can really hone in on that. Again, as Matt mentioned earlier, when we did the youth engagement, we heard about a couple of these crashes and a couple of these incidents that had happened. But maybe someone that you work with or that you know might have had a close call.
Katie, it's kind of the end of the day, and I think some of us might be still tired. I'm just guessing, maybe, but I'm wondering if it might help to share with the group some of this answers from the kids and see if any of those resonate, and then maybe the group can respond, say, you know, yes, no, or maybe, or something like that in the chat.
Yeah, let me just pull up some of those results. Sorry, I didn't have them up.
Yeah, sorry, thanks for your nimbleness here.
And again, in the meantime, if we there was another one that got put in the chat. Hold on.
I can share a couple. I've got some of it pulled up here in front of me. I think they shared at the destination, the library, and specifically wanting a bike rack at the library. So with that connection, a couple of the locations that were brought up were the Safeway near Mountain View, as well as on 299 in Mountain View, being kind of a couple locations where they had trouble crossing. And then another student had brought up Hudson and Maine being another location that was of concern, as well as Tamarack, the Tamarack and 299 intersection. So don't know if those locations are resonating with folks or prompting others' ideas. I see a few additional locations have been shared there in the chat, so appreciate that, Wade, Danielle, and Carrie.
Absolutely. If we can get the post in red about the corner by McDonald's, and especially people who are pulling out onto 299. And yeah, we heard a lot with the kids about being on Marquette, on Mountain View Road. But for the most part, again, if we're starting at the, they're really looking to, you know, let's see. Most of them are seeing not enough sidewalks, or the sidewalks that are broken. And in the areas that they're, for the most part, they're really feeling happy going to, about half are happy, but the second half are a mix of being scared and sad about going to school in some of these areas because of how unsafe it is.
Katie, we had Carrie had her hand up. I don't know if that was her comment in the chat board as well, but she did have her hand up.
Oh, wonderful. Does she need to be unmuted? Sorry, I'm trying to do a couple of things on this end here.
I think she's unmuted. Yeah, there you go.
Wonderful.
Hi, thank you. My name is Carrie. I'm from United Way of Northern California. I don't live in the area, but I have been in the area very recently, actually most recently today. And one thing that I've noticed, at least maybe one destination during lunch is Geppetto's. And it seems like a lot of maybe junior high and some high schoolers tend to frequent that spot for lunch. I'm not exactly sure what paths they're taking to get there, but that would probably also be a consideration of what paths they're taking and what those streets look like. I I think kids were running over when I was there, but I'm not quite sure. I think some kids maybe drove as well, but there were definitely some kids that were not old enough to drive, grabbing lunch. So that would maybe be another spot.
Absolutely. And again, I'm reading just from one of the comments from one of the elementary school students. There are some streets like Hudson where I live, there's literally no space on the road on the side for me to go. We have another comment that someone's mom got hit on Mountain View Street, broke 4 bones. So again, there's definitely there's definitely some problem areas, and we're excited to get them addressed for sure. I have another question when it comes to, do you know of anybody we want to make sure that we're talking about people who are living in any of the assisted living facilities around us. Do you know of anybody living in them, if they're having any transportation issues? And not only them, but people who are not mobile with cars. Is, again, we're looking for any experiences of people who are not as mobile, and how these some of the transportation issues are hindering their day-to-day life.
I think Herb, if you are available to talk on this one, I think you might be able to tell about that incident with the person in the wheelchair a few years back.
Yeah, so we got Waiachi Village elders housing up there on Park Avenue, and the casino is just right below that, and also the stores right there. So people come out of Waiachi to go to the casino or go to the store, and an elder come out of this casino and was going uphill and in a wheelchair, and a driver came out of the casino and hit her. And like I say, those paved shoulders are like, at least in that section, are a good 4 feet wide. So with her being off of the road, she still got hit and killed her. So yeah, that a lot of people go down there, and a lot of the only way they really get transportation is if they don't have a car, is they get help through the Pitt River Health Service to go to appointments. And once they get to go to appointments, then they can stop at a store or wherever they need to do some shopping. Sometimes I know they let them do that. So, but I wanted to comment on the last question. Was I got to mention Tamarack Avenue, because that street there is it leads right to a school. There's a continuation school there, so I know tribal kids that go to that school there, and cars go on that road fast because they're going to the casino or they're coming from the casino, and they're also going down to the mini mart store because that's the cheapest gas in town. And so that little store is pretty much packed a lot for people getting gas. So, and then also Tamarack leads to 299 also from the casino. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that.
And Herb, before you leave us here, I think the question was also about housing. Is that right? But anyway, the tribe has a planned housing development. Is that right, Herb?
Yeah. So right near the casino, we're planning. Well, this is the roads department here. We're working with SHN. engineers and to design a road that leads back to the tribe's 79 acres. It would bridge, I have to build a bridge across Burney Creek to get out there, but they're looking at about 28 units out there, possibly more, but yeah, it's in the works. You know, the bridge is, we're looking for funds for the bridge now, but I think we're going to be there. I'm hoping that we break ground this year, but I'm really hopeful that it'll be completed next year. So yeah, and just like Keith was mentioning, a lot of people will be walking out of that housing development because it's only a half mile to down to the casino and the stores. So I look for a lot of people walking along that route anyway to get to casino store or where they need to go to the clinic or whatever. So yeah, look for bikes and car and pedestrians coming out of there for sure.
Wonderful. And again, thank you to Carrie and Natalie for putting some more comments in the chat about some potential improvements and where we can do some work on some sidewalks and do some speed mitigation as well. All right. So again, if there's any other comments, questions about on points that we can put on this map. So again, going back to the top, if you're walking or you're biking, if you're not walking or biking, we'd love to hear why you're not right now or why you feel uncomfortable doing that. Maybe some key places that you want to see more accessible to walking or biking or getting to, or what are some of the hot spots that we want to make sure are easily accessible. Maybe there's an area that you feel unsafe or that you know is a problem area. Maybe it's somewhere that you've heard of some crashes or some close calls.
Katie, I'll throw in one last comment if I can.
Yeah, please do.
So I had seen the plan that Burney Water District has and they submitted some grants. They didn't get the big one to do a bunch of park improvements in town, but one of the things they wanted to do was have an entrance to Washburn View Park at Longleaf Lane. And Longleaf is about halfway along Park Avenue there. And so if there was a traffic control, either a light or a stop sign or a roundabout or something there, that would actually dovetail in with what the water district wants to do, because they want to put an entrance right there coming off Park Avenue into Washburn View Park. So I'm sure someone there probably is familiar with what's going on with the water district, but I just wanted to throw that in there because that could kind of solve the raceway effect of Parkway being long and no stop signs, and also help facilitate the water district's plan to put another entrance there at that point in the park on Park Avenue.
Absolutely.
And that's all.
That's not all. Wade, you've been fantastic here tonight. So again, thank you so much for all of your comments. We're going to leave this up for just about another minute. So in case there's any comments, questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Also, at the end of this presentation, we're going to give you Keith's email address. So if there's any follow-up stories, anything that you get reminded of after this meeting, we would still love to hear from you. Our engagement is not stopping today. We're full speed into this grant writing. We'd love to hear from as many of you as possible. All right, and with that, we'll transition back to the presentation. Again, thank you all so much for your participation here with the map activity. We just have a couple more slides to go through. Matt wants to come back and talk to you again. So Angelica, if you can share your screen. Wonderful, and then we can go over to the next, and then Matt, take it away.
Yeah, so I think just wanted to follow up on a couple of things, just in terms of what are the actual improvements, what do these look like on the ground for things that we're talking about. Obviously, I think everybody's very familiar with the sidewalks, so I'm not going to belabor that, but just looking for those opportunities where we can get a sidewalk at least on one side of the road to be able to help facilitate those connections, as well as looking for opportunities for curb ramps that are accessible. So I think we heard a little bit about folks with assistive devices needing to travel between destinations. So making sure that when they're crossing that roadway, they have an accessible pathway to do so and aren't having to take very long routes or go into the road and go along the road to get to their destination. And so we have just a quick little poll as we go through here. So I'll just ask, maybe we can launch that first one. I just want to understand if you're supportive of having new sidewalks or paths in Burney. We understand that sometimes there's some sensitivity around the appearance of sidewalks in rural communities. And so just want to make sure that we're getting that feedback from you all. We'll let that go for a few minutes. And one thing I didn't mention, so side paths are another option where we have a little bit more space to be able to physically separate that path away from the road and have a little bit of a buffer between the vehicle traffic and the area for walking and biking in that case. All right, well, looks like we got some good responses on that. Thank you. Everybody seems to be pretty supportive of that one. So moving on to the next slide. So our next one is related to crossing improvements. We also talked a little bit about this. So looking for those opportunities to enhance some of those existing crossings or look for new crossings that are going to help serve to connect some of those destinations that we talked about tonight. That can look like flashing beacons that accompany the sidewalk. You can see the curb extensions on both of these where we're actually bringing people out further on the sidewalk to reduce the crossing distance so that there's less exposure to moving traffic. So the crossing time is shorter, as well as some of the high visibility crosswalk markings. You can see there the image on the right with big white markings, just something that helps increase the visibility of that crossing so drivers are more aware of that potential conflict. And so we wanted to ask from your perspective, we've listed out a few areas of what do you see as the greatest need for crossing improvements in Burney and in the tribe? The schools, residential areas, access to trails or residential recreational areas, or getting across some of those major roadways, which we've heard a little bit about tonight. So. All right, give that one more second here. Looks like we have a common agreement for the most part around major roadways being that key, the greatest need, with schools there coming in as well. So thank you, appreciate that. Next up here on the next slide. We talked a little bit about this. So again, traffic calming, we heard a little bit from you all around some of the issues around speeding and concerns around that, but wanting to find those solutions. And again, we're showing a couple examples here. We got a mini roundabout, which I know I mentioned the vertical separation is something that we're trying to balance of how do we integrate as well, understanding the importance of winter maintenance, while also speaking to Wade's comments of making sure that we don't forget people walking and biking as well. So that being one solution, as well as just, you can see there in that second image, those little delineators just coming out into the roadway a little bit to narrow that down, just again, kind of creating a little bit of friction along the roadway to help people, help slow vehicles down, maintain that appropriate speed along the corridor. And so we'll, again, that can take a number of different formats, as I mentioned when I answered that question earlier, but really the goal is to help create that consistent, slower speed environment, more appropriate speed environment, so that people that are biking along the roadway or walking along the roadway can feel more comfortable with those interactions when they do have an interaction with vehicles. And so with that, I think maybe we'll just open up our last polling question here. Are you supportive of new traffic calming improvements in Burney to slow speeding vehicles? Give that just a couple more seconds here. And I will say, not often that I see a unanimous response on this question. So, so really appreciate appreciate that. I think we'll just go last to some of the bigger improvements, potential improvements. I mentioned before the side paths. So again, that can be for both walking and for biking, where you can see that off-street path image. We have both a bike lane that's in the roadway, but then also a separated path off to the side where there's that buffer to kind of increase the distance between people walking or biking along that roadway and the vehicle traffic. You see the buffered bike lanes there. I believe this is an example down from Reading, where you have that wide buffer between the motor vehicle traffic and people biking, just to increase that separation again and make that experience more comfortable than just a standard bike lane where you're right up next against traffic. And then kind of taking that to the next level, separated bike lanes introduce kind of the same general concept as a buffered bike lane, but introducing that vertical element to create a physical separation. So not just paint on the ground, but actually having that physical separation between you biking and motor vehicle traffic. And so maybe just a general question into the chat here. I'd appreciate if you guys have some thoughts around this, just thinking about some of these types of improvements. I'm just curious, where do you see the greatest need for bike connections in Burney? And so that just, again, if you could drop a thought into the chat, we'd really appreciate that to help make sure that this plan is addressing those needs.
Matt, just to clarify, are you asking them to give a preferred treatment from these three, or are you asking something else?
Well, I'm mostly just asking where they see the greatest need for a connection. I think if you do have a strong preference for any of these treatments, I definitely would also appreciate that feedback. But really, we want to help make sure that we're identifying the opportunity as well as the facility type. So I think a bonus. So kudos to Wade for getting both there. So.
All right. And again, if you guys want to put any other answers in the chat here about what's the greatest need for the bike connections. Carrie agrees that the buffered lanes. As someone who's on their bike a lot, I love a buffered lane. It makes me feel really safe and protected. And then Javid, it depends on how much room you have and the business needs. Absolutely, completely understand that as well. All right, we can go to the next slide, which is, again, we have a little time here to have some question and answers in case there's any questions you have about some of these potential improvements, anything that we went over today. This is your time to ask the project team any questions that they might have. We have plenty of time left on this call. So again, this time is yours. We would love to hear from you if you have any questions. Don't all jump up at once.
And I would also offer, if there's anything that you would like to share that we didn't get to, so it doesn't need to be a question, but if there's any comments or any issue that we didn't highlight that you think is very relevant for walking and biking improvements in Burney, we'd really, this is the opportunity to really help inform how we move forward with this project. Appreciate all the thoughts that everybody shared.
I was wondering, hey, this is Michael, everyone. I was just wondering if maybe, I'm not sure if it's part of the agenda or not, but maybe Keith can share with the audience kind of what the next steps are and what the future timeframes are. So everybody kind of knows what to expect going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we were gonna do that to wrap up, but if it helps generate some some conversation, I'm happy to do that now as well. But I'll defer to our meeting facilitator if that's something you want to do right now, Katie, or.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Might as well. We can always pause and go back to any other questions.
Okay. Well, first off, I do want to say something that I omitted in the beginning, and that is that this is the people that have been speaking today from the team. That's sort of the the core team, the lead team, but there are other people, part of the broader team on the call today, other partners, from Caltrans and from County Public Works, and I believe from County Public Health, if not directly, then indirectly, and Pitt River Public Health, Pitt River Health Services. So yeah, they're all very central to what we're doing here. We really need all those different lenses to put forward a successful, compelling grant application. And so in terms of next steps for that effort, I guess immediately, and we can maybe go to that slide. Immediately, if you can send us thoughts on the proposed, alignments and even if you have thoughts of some of those designs that you saw that might look appropriate, we'd love to hear that. Not just we would love to hear that, but like I want to emphasize just how important the public engagement aspect is of this grant effort. This is a major component of the success of a grant application. So even if you can't think of something right now, maybe when you have that epiphany in the shower, just shoot me an email right afterwards and get it to me while the ideas are fresh in your mind, because we really need as much fodder as we can. I can't stress enough how competitive this program is. It's just extremely underfunded. So anyway, also in addition to this, or as part of this, as Katie mentioned, if you can send me any accounts of close calls or crashes with vehicles and people walking and biking on our near project corridors, that's going to be really helpful to craft a good narrative and compelling narrative for the need of the project. And then lastly, there on this first bullet is for you to contact me if you feel open to being interviewed for a video interview, because what I'd like to do is put some faces to the story and reach grant evaluators in this fashion. I think really it's a human interest story that's going to convince evaluators to fund this project. So then the second item here is what the next steps here after today is we're going to get started on those project drawings. So Matt showed you some potential designs. Well, now we got to make them look pretty for the grant evaluators and engineers review and planners and people advocates reviewing these applications. And then Dan and his team are going to get started on the grant writing, and then after that we'll have some individual stakeholder meetings as needed to discuss some of the additional project details as they come up. And after that, we'll come back to you all and reveal the public informed designs for final comments. That's the fourth bullet. And then for the last bullet, we will wrap up the grant writing. And once we have our final grant writing, we're going to take that, and we're not satisfied with that. So we're going to give it to an expert panel of grant writers to review what our grant writers did so that it just has this extra layer of review, and then we can integrate those comments and submit a very competitive application. This is not a sure thing. I'll just say up front, but we're going to do the best we can. And I'd also like to say that we're doing our best effort to put together this application for ATP cycle 6, which is the upcoming cycle. But there are different factors involved that might push this out to a future cycle or a different funding effort. But right now, that's our goal. And yeah, I really appreciate everyone's attendance today. But before I sign off, I do want to, after now, the next steps, see if anyone has any questions or comments before I really wrap things up.
And I did put your email in the chat so people can copy and paste that.
Yeah.
Make sure you save that.
And share that with people if you think that they might have an opinion or would like to know more about the project, because it doesn't have to be someone on this call. So anyone that walks, bikes, or rolls in Burney.
Yeah, and I'd say also it's not just people who walk, bike, or roll. This is also for people who drive and are concerned about the speeds of other cars. These are just some of the tools in the toolbox for getting cars to slow down. So this is really a project for everyone in the community. Well, anyway, thank you very much for everyone's participation. Apologize for the motorcycle doing wheelies in the background. And do contact me if you have any questions, comments, and the Javed's asking about the time frame. Thank you, Javed. I missed that. So the deadline to submit the application is June 15th. And then evaluators will review them and decisions will be made in October. That's if we do submit an application for this cycle. Any other questions about the process?
It looks like Natalie's asking for a bit more information emailed to her. So I'll take down your email address and I'm going to send it to Keith right now. So we have that tracked. And then, yes, we're going to process this community meeting recording as fast as possible. We'll work with SRTA on either we'll host it on our YouTube, they'll host it on their YouTube, but we'll get it public, get it circulating. So in case of anyone who missed it, who might still be able to give us some great feedback, as many people to have eyes on this meeting as possible, as well as emailing Keith would be great. And like Keith said, we just really, really appreciate your participation. Wonderful. And with that, if there's no other questions, again, my name is Katie DeMeo. It's been really a pleasure facilitating this meeting here tonight, and we hope to hear from you all soon. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you very much.